I really want to talk about ContraPoints' narcissistic statement about Palestine.
And they must be in like these bubbles where they actually know people who might be Israeli, or they might have some sort of sympathy with the state of Israel. Because the way they speak about it is just really bizarre.
Hamas, do you condemn XYZ? Do you condone XY? Do you condone the murder of da-da-da? And talking to just regular people about whether they condemn or condone something, whether they oppose something. Opposing is an action.
I'd rather be judged on my actual opinions, so here they are. Is Israel committing a genocide in Gaza? Yes. Do I oppose it? Yes. Do I feel angry about it? Yes. I also feel a lot of other things.
I cannot believe that Natalie typed this out, read it through, made sure there were no grammatical errors, and then thought that this was good to publish.
I also feel a lot of other things. The week after October 7th, it was clear that the mood among Israeli leaders and civilians were overwhelmingly kill or be killed, existential panic, and unstoppable lust for revenge. It reminded me of the US after 9/11. That's a white nationalistic thought process. That's a cracker point right there. That's a cracker point.
I have a dream.
Where are my comments? Where are my guys? Whoop, nice to see you, Remy. Okay, there y'all coming. There y'all coming in. Y'all coming in. Hi. Y'all coming in. Hi. Hey, it's nice to hear y'all. It's nice to see y'all. It's nice to see y'all. Yeah, I wanted to hop on today because I wanted to get into this conversation, I guess, of like breadtube being dead. I don't think breadtube is dead, and I don't think breadtube is going to die anytime soon. But I do think there's a huge conversation around the aspects of the optics of leftism and how breadtube correlates to a contextual sense of marginalization in an everyday setting. You know what I'm saying? It's nice to see you, Sea Dragon. It's nice to see you, Jimothy. It's nice to see you, Eli. Another turbular stream I see. Yeah, God, be normal about this, please. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be as normal. I'm gonna try to be as normal as possible. We're going into some waters, some very familiar waters, as you could say. Like breadtube is what I'm on. I guess you could call me breadtube. I wouldn't really call myself breadtube, but breadtube is what I'm on. Breadtube is what a lot of these people are on that push optics of leftism, right? And let's just get right into this. Okay? Breadtube ain't dead, okay? Whoever's nihilistic, I need y'all stand.
I have a dream.
Whoever's nihilistic, I need y'all to fucking, I don't know, go kiss somebody. Like, go out there, talk to somebody, go outside, get acquainted. Community isn't dead. The world is still moving around you, right? No matter how much leftist figures do some escapades online. The movement ain't dead. Nothing is gonna be dead, okay? Nothing gonna be dead.
I have a dream.
That's my first I guess major topic with this. I'm not gonna lie and act like I've always had the spirit of optimism, you know, amidst the terrors of North America. But as of right now, July 13th, there's no fear in my soul, right? Yes, the government is attacking people for free speech. Yes, Ethan Wife-guyed himself into being a neo-Nazi. And I'm watching all my friends being posted on a 60-year-old Zionist Insta. You know what I mean? Yes, there's multiple genocides happening, along with the included erasure of trans identity across the board. But I'm still here, though. You still here, though? Those Palestinians can't tell stories no more, and you're sliding on the rubble. Like, of course we were mad. Like, we had to listen to a live stream of a little kid die in a car to a tank while begging to be saved by the government. You know what I'm saying? And this is where this is where we get into the aspect of, I guess, leftist. Sorry about the background. My friend is here right now. I'm streaming at my friend's house right now. So if you hear my friend in the background, I'm very sorry. It's their birthday, by the way. Everyone say happy birthday, Isaiah. Everybody say happy birthday, Isaiah. But see, there's you could say there's fake leftists among us, you know. We're gonna be talking about ContraPoints' response, but I also want to just talk to y'all and suss out the atmosphere right now, right? Like, where are my radical kill the state and dismantle the means of exploitation people at right now? Where am I? Where am I rattle dismantle the state of Israel people right now? Where am I radical dismantle the state of Canada, dismantle the state of America, dismantle the state of goddamn all the UN? Where are my people right now? Because I need y'all at the forefront, right? First of all, I need y'all to understand that all leftists aren't the same. This is just a useful phrase utilized when needed to cut across like basic issues like, do you care about trans people, right? Do you care about black people? Do you care about indigenous people, right? However, leftist thought isn't easily defined, but there is an identity to leftist thought. Hence, where we come in, right? Bread tubers or entertainers or leftist thought leaders who can distribute and package those thoughts onto the screen through videos. Essentially, we rely a lot on this camera. Through this camera, I've built the Turb audience, I built the Turb network, but also the personhood of Turb, right? When you go on the channel Turb is everything presented on the Turb platform, communally funded by Turb fans, right? And my job here is to give y'all a materialistic means of accountability when it comes to extraction colonialism. But first of all, what is extraction colonialism, audience? What is extraction colonialism, audience? What is extraction colonialism? What is it? Can we even get to that point? I think extraction colonialism is the means at which a state keeps itself alive off of the back of marginalized people, right? But I want to hear y'all's definition of extraction colonialism. Normal guy said, "Oh, you're spitting." LD Med said, "Present." Come on, guys, I need someone to say something. Say something. What is? Take your best guess, even if it's awful. All answers are allowable here, right? In a sense of extraction colonialism, take your best guess. The fact that we're gonna have to start at square one. I'm down with starting at square one, though. If we're starting at square one with the condition of extraction colonialism, let's start with that. First of all, let's define colonialism. It's defined as a policy or set of policies and practices where a political power, where one territory exerts control in a different territory. You know what I mean? It involves unequal power relations. For example, colonialism in Canada has been propagated off of our unfair treatment of Indigenous people, right? Treaty 6 is the only set we throw up here, by the way. Treaty 6 is the only set we throw up
I
here.
have a dream.
Someone said I thought extraction was part and parcel of colonialism or something. Yes, extraction is part of colonialism as a whole. The hegemony of colonialism comes from extractionist policies and extractionist conditions of living, whether you're in America, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in da-da-da-da. And that works very differently, right? In the prairies, we have pipelines, which from a history of, the American dream or a Canadian ideal of white normalcy, of entrenchment onto those lands. We're very much easily able to marginalize Indigenous people under an idea of savagery, and then extract resources from those lands in concepts of minerals, in concepts of oils, in concepts of crude oils, in concepts of all these things that are sent down to places like down south, where we work directly with power companies there in order to provide power to people in America, right? Someone said extraction colonialism sounds to me like draining of resources, both material and immaterial. Immaterial is very important too, because extraction colonialism also relies on a normalcy, right? A normalcy of degradation. So this degradation has to historically be popular. Like slavery in its time was popular. The entrapment of Japanese people in internment camps was popular because of rising sentiments of xenophobia, distinctly towards those Asian people who helped build the railroad and were the material sources of bodies on the front lines, like dying in order for these railroads to be built across, in order for Canada itself to have a connection or a means of connection across its colonies. Asian workers were very much substantial for that. So y'all gotta throw it up to the Chinese people in Vancouver, direct descendants of that. So when we're talking about context and we're talking about material reality, we have to also realize that we're not that separate from the connotation of extraction colonialism, right? However, colonialism is a means of social order that we're born into. We directly affect that order from generation to generation. So essentially, leftists or leftist people are opposed to social orders of complacency in their perceived connotations to extraction. And one of the biggest ills of settler colonialism has been slavery, right? Whether that's slavery across the specific railroad where Asian people were being kept there, or slavery in cotton fields. So Black people inherently here could be seen as leftists for wanting their own rights, right? And formerly enslaved, freed African Americans went out and fought for their own rights. They formed societies and and towards state to state relentlessly, because this wasn't popular across America, but for Black people being born under the condition of slavery, that, you know, normalcy of degradation was something violently fought for. And from this our age of leftism, we get speakers like Frederick Douglass, William Brown, and Sojourner Truth. But let's open up this document, because you know I love citing my sources, and we always have to have our sources cited on things like this. Remember, guys, we always have to have our sources cited on things like this. Throw in this. Where is it? Computer screen? Oh my God. Where's my browser? I gotta get my browser real quick. Give me 2 seconds. Oh my God. Why did they not give me my browser? Mac AOS capture device, screen capture. Okay, there we go. Window capture. Okay, there we go. Oh my God. Hello from Treaty 4. We Treaty 6 over here. I'm trying to throw something up on the screen, so y'all gotta give me a little bit. I'm so sorry for this. I am so sorry for this, but we will be underway very soon. Oh God. You didn't really miss much. We're just talking about we're talking about colonialism. We're talking about colonial means of extraction. But okay, let's put this under us. Let's put this under us. Okay. Hey, we good. Thank you for the patience. But someone said, what is Treaty 4 and Treaty 6? Treaty 4 and Treaty 6 are basically land acknowledgements made under the normalcy of settler colonialism that white colonists made with indigenous peoples in order to set the means of apartheid states, you could say. But CrackerPoints here is someone we're getting into. But first, we're going to talk about resistance and abolition, okay? Although it was the law and order of the land for more than 300 years, American slavery... Wait, let me pull this back. Although it was the law of the land for more than 300 years, American slavery was challenged and resisted every day by its victims, by its survivors, and by those who found it morally unacceptable. The long campaign to abolish the trade in human beings was one of the great moral crusades in U.S. history. So this means of normalcy was enacted on an American public, right? The daily life in a slave workplace was marked by countless acts of everyday resistance. Although their freedom was denied by the law, enslaved African Americans used a wide variety of strategies to contest the authority of slaveholders and to assert their right to control of their own lives. This sort of rebellion, or this sort of means of resistance, is also seen in contextual instances of marginalization across the board, whether you're talking about the Holocaust and specifically Jewish people rebelling against Nazis in numerous different ways among themselves. Whether you're talking about Haitians being historically oppressed by European countries and then violently enacting their own rebellion through the means of a normalcy of degradation still, right? Slaveholders depended on involuntary labor to keep their businesses solvent, and enslaved workers often use work slowdowns and I can't even pronounce that, to negotiate some of the terms of their labor, right? Many enslaved African Americans defied the slave system by leaving it. Escaped attempts were dangerous and uncertain, and slaveholders posted substantial rewards for captured fugitives. But every year, hundreds of thousands of enslaved people fled to free states or territories. On the way, they were aided by enslaved people on nearby farms and plantations, and by networks, right, of freed African Americans and European Americans. By 1860, an estimated 400,000 people had escaped from slavery, right? Now let's get back to the idea of a normalization of degradation in these times, right? If you were a slave owner, or if you were a slave, you were met with a very different contextual history in a sense of settler colonialism and extraction, with the material means of your own, I guess, action. Like, what can you do when you're a slave under those conditions? What can you do when you're a white slave owner or someone in the immediate public of normalcy in adjacency to benefiting from that extraction process, right? What can you do? That's the big question. What can you do?
I have a dream.
Right. And I want to highlight one of the thought leaders, or one of the people who I guess formed a means of revolutionary action in this sense of degradation. One of them was Henry Highland, right? And Henry Highland was born in 1815 and lived all the way to 1882. Born into slavery near New Marquis, Maryland on December 23rd in 1815, Henry Highland escaped from the bondage via the Underground Railroad with his parents, right? Henry's childhood was a mix of opportunities and difficulties. He attended the African Free School, which was one of several schools established in the northern cities by white philanthropists. His classmates included several future black abolitionist leaders, such as Alexander Cromwell, Samuel Ringward, and James McCune Smith, right? And the fact that Henry's childhood, classmates and relatives came out of these means of degradation can't be separated from a material reality that's what made them become civil rights leaders and take action in their own communities. And them seeing this complex means of erasure in colonial extractionist society. So Henry decided to use his education to become a civil rights leader, essentially, after escaping the same means of bondage. But the fact of the matter is, he was still threatened in a very material sense. His parents were still threatened by slave catchers who wanted to catch people that escaped and use these means of, I guess, illegal means of fighting against extraction colonialist societies in a legalized way. So Henry used this illegal way to fight against this extraction colonialist principle, right, of slavery, the Underground Railroad, to fight for his own freedom, to come out on the other end, first of all, with him and his parents, and then fight for his own freedom. But these slave catchers, right, still would come by and still attack his parents' place of stay while he was at school, right? It said here, after he returned home, Garnet then suffered a debilitating leg injury that plagued him for the rest of his life. He found solace and inspiration in the church. But while Henry was at sea working as a cabin boy and cook, his parents narrowly escaped slave catchers who destroyed or stole the furniture from their home, right? So this means of degradation has to be put into a material sense of history, and we have to know where we come from as leftists, as leftist thought leaders, that our means of communication has not always been popular in a broader zeitgeist. Essentially, with the Palestine situation too, we've seen protests spanning across multiple places in Europe, multiple places in North America, Australia, Africa, places everywhere, right? We've seen Freedom Flotilla brigades, one led by Greta Thunberg, launched to Israel with the purpose of, putting a voice or a cause more so on Palestinians. We've seen all of these things happen in our own different aspects of society, and within our own material means, people have taken stances against the aspect of apartheid that Palestinians are met with in the state of Israel. But all the way back when, with slavery in the colonial era, with how black people were pitted in a societal normalcy of, degradation with our white accomplices, it wasn't always seen as favorable, even while black people were escaping and finding emancipatory means of self-reliance amidst these systems. Someone said slavery in the colonial era was basically Europe's aristocracy implementing their feudal aristocracy in the Americas. Thus, the white landing elites are the core reaction throughout the Americas. Yes. And as we're moving towards a new age of extraction colonialist thought processes across the globe, right? We saw the UN directly strike down all these allegations of genocide to a point where they couldn't anymore. But then when they could, Netanyahu is still is still paraded in the White House, is still able to come to Canada, is still able to come to certain countries, right? There's this means of white nationalism or white complacency forming, essentially with the globalized aspects of genocide and the globalized aspects of marginalization that Palestinians are met with, that Congolese people are met with, that Southern Sudanese people are met with, that Sudanese people are met with, right? That expand further than the means of leftism in our, brief instance of breadtube can really educate on. So let me break this down. First of all, we are in a global means of settler colonialism, right? Settler colonialism has globalized at this point, and we have means of colonial extraction that we benefit from in places like the Congo, through our computers, through NVIDIA, through every time someone puts stocks in NVIDIA and stocks in these AI companies, they're directly hurting the Congo, right? So scorning the left and everything that might be a big like W for people that are in the means of white complacency, but y'all have to realize your dad is fueling that genocide. That stock in your NVIDIA product is fueling that genocide, right? And now I want to break this down a bit further. When we talk about contextually what leftists are doing, or what leftists should be doing, I'm going to bring in a context of material reality. James Wesley Hill, right? Do y'all know who James Wesley Hill was? He was born in Maryland as a slave, but escaped into Upper Canada in a packing box and settled in a farm in Oakville, right? Oakville, Ontario. And though he was safe and free in Canada, James Hill decided to pave the way forward for other slaves to escape. He returned to the United States 7 different times over the next years and became an agent of the same Underground Railroad. And he earned the name of Canada Jim, right? He started a strawberry farm and hired free slaves to work there. His work helped to make Oakville the one-time strawberry industry capital of Canada. So in a sense, while this extraction, colonialism, normalcy was happening in Canada, that kind of degraded the aspect of Black identity in the US. James Wesley decided, hey, I'm going to use my farm to incorporate a whole bunch of Black people, 800 different Black people, and teach them, or not teach them, because they were already very well equipped to mend the land. They just didn't have the resources, right? James was like, I'm going to give the resources to these Black people that have been tending the lands for all these generations, and give them an opportunity up here. So how would a leftist essentially carry out that tradition in Ontario today? Well, let's pull up a document, because I love citing my sources. Someone said, happy birthday, Julian. Happy birthday, Julian. Julian in the chat, happy birthday, Julian. Happy birthday, Julian.
I have a dream.
I hope you have an amazing birthday. But you could see it here. This is what I basically read, James Wesley Hill. Someone that's carrying on that tradition is Cheyenne, a 25-year-old Black farmer and food justice advocate. She founded Sundance Harvest, an incubator farm and distribution hub that grows food and trains farmers all year round in 3 different locations in southern West Ontario, including an urban farm near Downsview Park, Toronto. She runs the farm on the core values of fair labor and access to knowledge of farming to scale, right? Directly connected to James Wesley in a degree of marginalization, Cheyenne is there, right? Giving the same means of advocacy to Black communities up in Ontario. No problem, by the way, Julian. By the way, Julian Steve also has this YouTube channel, which is very cool. If y'all want to give them a little subby, that would be a good birthday present. But what I'm saying is modern day leftists in contextual history fight settler colonialism how we can, basically. But back in the day, they were doing this through tours, like these civil rights leaders that we talked about earlier would be on radio, they'd be on newspapers to a white public that was campaigning just as hard to keep Black identity degraded, so the normalcy of white acceptance would be a tangible thing, right? Things like minstrelsy popped up. And I'm not saying all white people in these days and age were evil, because even the concept of white identity shifts in hegemony. One of these canon events in the perception of Blackness we had to fight against, though, was the aspect of minstrelsy. And let me pop this up. I've talked about minstrelsy a million times, but in connotation here, minstrelsy was made in order to keep Black people a degraded spectacle in context to the Jim Crow era South, right? After slavery was abolished, the means of looking at Black people as an inherent other became a thing of connotation White people started doing this through caricatures. Mickey Mouse was one of the first minstrel caricatures. There's this Bugs Bunny caricature where he's shooting indigenous people to, I guess, strengthen that kind of normalcy or semblance of a white nationalistic view of society or a narrative in history, right? So let's go back here to minstrelsy. Minstrelsy and connecting blackness to the body and whiteness to the mind. White people putting on blackface and dressing up as black people for entertainment and comedic purposes is disturbing and upsetting on many levels. This is by Nakano, by the way, Tiana Nakano. To me, an aspect of this that is particularly horrific is the effect it had on the body, particularly the black body that is often deemed invisible, expendable, dangerous, or hypersexual. Minstrelsy contributed to these stereotypes and beliefs about the black body by controlling how others perceived it. Minstrelsy allowed white people to take ownership over the black body by literally putting it on a costume through blackface. They were then able to prove an amount of stereotypes through this, especially on account that many of the audience members did not know whether the people on stage were actually black or not, right? So tying blackness to the body was justified colonialism. It justified the means of degradation that black people were getting in the South as they were being hypersexualized in court cases, as they were being demeaned for aspects of caricature, whether it was like this black ideal, or sorry, not black ideal, this black perception of masculinity that a lot of people embodied just by living, just by being black and having dreads or things like that, right? Or by having things like watermelon farms. The spectacle of minstrelsy and watermelon farms became this degrading thing for those black farmers, right? So let's take a step back. Someone said I always got racist vibes from Goofy in the old Disney shorts. Correct me if I'm wrong, because if you know, as pale as the moonlight, but that's the vibe. Yeah, Goofy, I would even go as far to say like a lot of those Goofy movies were very black oriented and situated, but I digress. We're gonna keep going. So why does this matter? Well, the minstrel caricatures started Mickey Mouse, Disney, and animation as a whole. It started country music, the blues, and North American theater, right? These stereotypes and caricatures ruled over a black person's life even before they had the chance to say a word, right? But minstrelsy was useful because it kept a white narrative of settler colonialism. Like, no longer were black people tenants of lands in the South. Now they can be reduced to animalistic savages that eat watermelon messily, right? No longer are they tenants in the Underground Railroad. Now they're, just disoriented people fighting for a false sense of liberation, right? This same aspect of personification still even carries on, right? I know I say this a lot, but remember that Ebola song or Celebrate Our Differences song? Setting a verifiable means of white identity over the years has been intrinsically linked with fathoming black people in certain parameters, which gives white people the most amount of white comfort, right? So black people still go under a certain adultification, which has remained on the spectacle of the public since the civil rights era, right? And what is adultification? Do y'all know what adultification is? It's under the pretense of seeing black children as threats because of a history of communal thought, especially with black boys, against the systemic conditions of capitalism, right? Now let's pull up an article, because y'all know I love citing articles. We love citing articles, and we love giving y'all the facts, right? Someone said, meanwhile, America, white upper middle class culture had an obsession with Europe, desire for a very controlled society, and a desire for success by securing a position in a white shoe firm. Yes, and that kind of idea also carried on with aspects of white nationalistic identity in the KKK, and how they viewed Ireland, people in Ireland, and how they viewed Italian Americans. One of the biggest aspects of mass protests that happened in Europe happened when somebody in Italy was basically put on trial and sentenced to the electric chair. And a bunch of people in Europe started protesting because they were like, wait, that person's white, that person's Italian. But people in America had this separate notion in a white narrative that, no, that person wasn't white. They're allowed to have the same death penalty. And this kind of exasperated that means of nationalism that white Americans felt in context to Europeans. But as we said, we're going to pull up this means of adultification. Adultification, anger bias in adults, different perceptions of black and white children, right? Adultification is perceiving a child as older and or more mature. Perceiving anger where it does not exist, right? With black children, this is in the skin tone. Multiple studies suggest that black children are seen as more adult than white children, a phenomenon known as adultification, and thus less innocent and more culpable for, prison sentences and things of that accord. One consequence of adultification may be racialized anger bias, the phenomenon in which adults mislabel emotions of black children as angry when they are not displaying anger and at higher rates than white children, right? So let's put this back. So when met with the concept of white normalization, right? With this aspect of adultification, how is that kind of translated into the modern day, right? Well, we had whole movements about it. Y'all remember the George Floyd movements and the kind of anger we all had against George Floyd not being killed, publicly lynched by police, basically in front of us. Y'all remember that? Well, side by side, we've seen a proliferation of the usage of terms like YN, right? To define a stereotype of the same fear that we find in the imagery of black boys. And I want to open up TikTok so y'all could see what I'm really talking about.
Oh, he's LeBron James. He's the best in the world on and off of the court. And I can't help but to glaze when I hear his name. What a beautiful...
Y'all gotta give me 2 seconds because I gotta log into my TikTok and I don't want y'all to see my name. I don't want y'all to see my name. Oh my God, because my TikTok is the easiest TikTok to get into if you know my name. Actually, let me not say that actually. No, my TikTok is the hardest to get into.
Oh, he's LeBron James.
My TikTok is the hardest to get into. If you try 1,000,000 times, you won't guess my password. So don't try doing that. Yeah. But let's get into the conversation of the YNs. Someone said, I didn't realize what YN meant because I'm someone who literally reads fan fiction. So I thought YN meant your name. No, YN does not mean your name. YN means young nigga.
I have a dream.
That's what it means, right? That's what it means, right? So essentially, when we get into the TikTokification of this, we could see how people are kind of utilizing the aspect of black identity in a public spectacle to push out this concept of the YN. Somebody here is using AI in order to do it. This guy here. Let's see this.
You know what? Fuck it. Next YN that walks into this dealership is getting a free Hellcat. You know what? Fuck it. Next YN that walks into this dealership is getting a free Hellcat.
Next YN that walks into this dealership is getting a free Hellcat. You hear that? Next YN that walks into this, you hear that? Like using a conceptual notion of black identity with black men, specifically in the 21st century, that black men love Hellcats. Next YN that comes in here is getting a Hellcat. I just want y'all keep watching.
Okay, so I know I said you'd get a free Hellcat, but how does a Draco with a switch sound instead?
That sounds amazing.
All right, my boy, which car you want?
I think you know which one.
You see what I mean? And this aspect of adultification, I guess, is literally simulating this literal personification of blackness that was created in minstrelsy, right? This personification of blackness that was created in minstrelsy to a degradation of whiteness and pushing it to a public. This is getting 250K views, right? There's people in the comments saying Draco with a switch, 400 likes. So a YN is just a black person, 10,000 likes. This is getting out of control, 20,000 likes. This is actually hilarious because you can't cancel AI beings, 13K. And that's the scary thing, right? You can't cancel, you can't directly come after the creators of these ideals, because the thing is, these ideals are so normalized that people across the board are just making these faceless accounts and pushing them onto a public that reciprocates with this same aspect of black identity that we see on a day-to-day basis, right? So this proliferation of these same talking points are just being pushed out with nothing that's telling it to stop. No coding against this adultification of blackness. No widespread, I guess, normalcy against the aspects of YNs that we're meant to interact with in a public spectacle. And somebody sums it up here real quick.
YN is just another way to say the N-word, and it's also being used to the adultification of black children at like an exponential rate that I have not seen since the passing of Trayvon Martin. And let me explain that for a second. Because, like, I'm seeing videos of YN being used for children. Like, actual children saying, like, oh my god, look at these YNs taking over the pool. Sir, those are, like, 12 and 13-year-olds at their local pool and park. Like, I don't know what else to tell you about it. But they're using it in a way, and not just, like, them, like, the government. Everyone is using it in such a way to where it's adultifying these children, man. That's what they are. They're children. These are your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your friends. These are just people in the neighborhood. But they're children at the end of the day, right?
Right, and this comes with a human eye. Oh my god, someone sent $10 and said, please, can we listen to the full "Oh, He's LeBron James" song? Oh my god. Okay, at the end of this stream, we will listen to the LeBron James song. I have a dream. I will dance to it with you, actually. I will bring my friend in here and we will both dance to the LeBron James song. Thank you for that $10. Thank you so much. Remember that subscribing to the Twitch and becoming a Twitch sub or joining the Twitch also helps immensely. But yeah, thank y'all for the $10 because y'all support this dream. But essentially, when we're talking about the adultification of leftists, right? When we're talking about the adultification of people, we have to understand Black people and the public ethos of thought on marginalized identity. We have to understand that we're constantly fighting perceptions of self that are led to be popular in the eyes of the public, right? Whether it's in the era of slavery, whether that's in the era of apartheid or in the modern day. However, it's important to remember that the justifications of these thoughts around marginalized folk aren't to be accepted if you're a leftist. No matter how popular or negative it is in connotation, they just aren't right and serve to fuel a purpose of oppression, right? Like, believe it or not, TV was actually one of the first ways public spectacle around Black identity was normalized, also in a positive setting, right? One of these people was Mahalia Jackson. Mahalia Jackson. Let me put this person up on the stage so you know who this person is. Mahalia Jackson, right? This person here, Mahalia Jackson. They were a leader in the civil rights movement. But what we have to understand with these voices is a lot of these voices inherently didn't even want to be civil rights leaders. Essentially, they were born into it and had to fight against the degradation, right? Mahalia Jackson was born in New Orleans in 1911 and from childhood sang in church. You know, she resisted the lure to secular music by saying, when you sing gospel, you have a feeling there's a cure for what's wrong. But when you are wrong with the blues, you've got nothing to rest on, right? When you sing gospel, you have a feeling there is a cure for what is wrong, right? But when you are through with the blues, you've got nothing to rest on, right? And that's powerful. That's powerful. Because this aspect of gospel, or this aspect of complacency that was met in Black churches, specifically with the idea of community, was a very degrading aspect in and of itself, because it existed on a normalcy of Black people being, essentially being wage slave laborers in certain cotton fields with things like sharecropping and things like that. Right. But Mahalia Jackson directly fought against that. She sang in church storefronts, right? And as her recognition grew, she began giving church concerts, making records, and touring across the US and abroad. She also sang on the radio and television. Jackson became involved with the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King, right? In the 1957 prayer pilgrimage for freedom at the Lincoln Memorial, right, the civil rights rally where MLK had the "I Had a Dream" speech. She sang there. She sang right before Martin Luther King's "I Had a Dream" speech. She sang, right?
I have a dream.
The fact is, civil rights leaders or civil rights activists or leftist trains of thoughts have always been centered way more than just Martin Luther King. They've centered the people around Martin Luther King. Let's go for the next person. You hear people like Wilt Chamberlain, right? NBA players and basketball player and baseball players like Jackie Robinson becoming national spectacle for the equal opportunity of Black people in the white field of sports and stuff, right? However, when we think of leftists, we often think of this guy, right? We often think of this guy, right? Right? We often think of this guy, right? He delivered his famous speech as he stood in front of a crowd of 250,000 people in front of the Lincoln Memorial on August 28th during the March on Washington. And it was televised live to an audience of millions. And let me put up this article because everyone uses MLK in a liberatory sense sometimes, but a lot of people don't have the backing behind it. We need the backing. So here, MLK Day of Service is intended to empower individuals, strengthen communities, bridge barriers, create solutions to social problems, and move us closer to Dr. King's vision of a beloved community. And Dr. King's vision of that community essentially included people like Mahala, the people who sang in churches, the people who were watermelon farmers, the people in the Montgomery bus boycotts who couldn't get to work on time and in a manageable fashion because of that degradation of blackness, right? So the spectacle and the battle for spectacle in optics for MLK in this "I Had a Dream" speech being fought for in degradation by minstrelsy and by all these other factors of white normalcy wasn't that popular, but MLK still did it. MLK still got on here and did his "I Had a Dream" speech. He still invited all these popular figures from across America in their own respective movements and had these actions made for the camaraderie of intersectionality, right? So when we're talking about intersectionality and we're talking about the means of leftism that we're kind of moving into, we have to understand that these spectacles need to be linked to a very real reality, right? In the first half of the 20th century, that's in the 1900s legal segregation system, right? That was all ways of life. Right after the Plessy v. Ferguson case, the court ruled that state segregation laws were permissible provided that the state required separate but equal facilities, right? Which also widened the range for Jim Crow laws to be introduced into everyday life, including the Montgomery bus segregation, where 14 states carrying laws required segregation by race in transportation serving the public. These laws served as a reminder that Black people were politically second-class citizens, right? Understandably, this created much frustration and hurt amongst Black people in the United States. This was one of the main reasons that protesters joined the civil rights movement, like Mahala and a bunch of other people. Their grievance was that in many of the states, they were not considered equal. They were watching family members killed left and right. And until 1960, America allowed this to happen in full reign, you know? One of these public spectacles that became outright wrong was lynchings. Defining lynchings as mob murders in defiance of law and established judicial procedures, right? After Reconstruction, it became commonplace in the South. Between 1882 to 1968, there was a reported 4,000, well, let me look at the notes. 3,445. I was going to say 4,000, 3,445. Probably more, not going to lie, knowing the departments sucks at tallying those stats, right?
I have a dream.
Someone said Mahalia. I'm super sorry for mispronouncing it, but as I'm saying, their grievance, right, was that this thing was a stated reality, right? And there's also civil rights leaders like Burma Zone that argued that this was the only way this could have happened was if local authorities were complicit and the local conjuration of society was complicit, right? Additionally, he said the justice system seemed to be broken, right? All white male juries condemned Black on white crimes while acquitting white on Black crimes. Everyday life for African Americans living in the southern United States during the Jim Crow period was fraught with danger, right? So Black organizers recognized the sympathy that lynchings or these public killings had on a public zeitgeist, right? That had on a public setting. In the same way the knee on the neck matches up with George Floyd, right? We can realize visually the harms of white supremacy when it's documented, right? This popped off when white racists in Mississippi undertook more emboldened actions, you know. One of them was on 14-year-old Emmett Till. Brutally murdered by two white men in Mississippi for simply saying bye to a white woman, right? His body was later found in a river, despite the overwhelming evidence against these men. An all-white Mississippi jury acquitted these murders. And this event sent shock, fury, and fear through Black communities, obviously, and was one of the reasons that the civil rights movement began even, right? And I want you guys to put the modern events of Palestine, or the modern events of civil rights causes, and link this to the spectacle or leftist thoughts created when we have discourse. You know, if y'all don't know, Palestine and Palestinians are also second-class citizens to the state of Israel, right? Let me pull up a document, because a lot of people don't read, and a lot of people don't read about this era specifically. So we kind of need a backing on this. Palestinians in Israel have a complex relationship with the state in which they live. Oh my God, my laptop's about to die. I'm up to the 8%. They have been citizens of the country for more than 60 years, but not full-fledged citizens, as Israeli historian Ilan Papp indicates in his book, The Forgotten Palestinians. They navigate a precarious position between Jewish Israelis and Palestinians in the occupied territories, but their experiences are rarely the focus of attention, right? And then here it goes into how Palestinians are essentially, removed from public spectacle when it comes to the 21st century. And this is when we get into the conversation of breadtube. I know that was a lot, but this was a lot to point out in conversation of breadtube. When we're talking about the civil rights movements, and we're talking about the aspects of, I guess, the ways in which people organized for marginalized people, specifically for Black people in the civil rights movement, we have to think about MLK and how MLK, I guess, organized for those Black people. Yes, he had that "I have a dream" speech, but he also had protests, right? When he was young, King assumed that violence was needed to win equal rights, right? But then his strategy changed when he met with Gandhi and a bunch of other liberationist practitioners. Let me not like people that love Black people, okay? People that love damn Black people, okay? People that love Black people, okay? He realized nonviolent protest is most effective when protesters face violence from their opponents, right? King and other civil rights leaders chose the locations of protests based on this notion. They realized that if their movements were to have success, it needed to be highly publicized. So on top of that "I have a dream" speech that was met for millions of eyes, right? He also knew that the on the grounds means needed to be publicized, right? To gain this publicity, organizers specifically chose locations where they knew there would be inevitable strong pro-segregation pushback, right? Early in the civil rights movement, the leaders had attempted to protest in Albany, Georgia. But Albany, Georgia was filled with Black people, right? And not as much white people. So this degradation essentially led to Georgia having exceptionally weak segregationist movement, right? And this led to, oh my God, Isaiah in the background. But without the clashes between police and demonstrators, the support for these protesters wasn't bolstered as much. So the movement eventually developed from this lack of success in Albany, Georgia. And civil rights leaders realized that that in order to have success, they have to choose areas where there would be fierce counter protests, right? This led them to choose to protest in both the Alabama cities of Birmingham and Selma in both 1963 and 1964, right? In both of these cities, the likelihood of counter-protest was highly probable. And Luders explains that King chose Selma as a place to protest because of the high likelihood of anti-rights violence in defense of rigorous inequalities, right? Sure enough, both Birmingham and Selma were cities where the civil rights movement saw incredible success. This was due to the extent of the racism and strong pro-segregation movements in those areas, right? The Selma movement is remembered for Bloody Sunday, which on March 7th, 1964, where over 500 civil rights marchers departed across the city towards the state capitol for voting rights, right? But waiting for them was the racist Dallas County Sheriff Jim Clark. Jim Clark was waiting for them, right? And a group of other pro-segregationist movement members who met the protesters using tear gas and wielding batons, resulting in dozens being injured. But on Bloody Sunday, the American public witnessed the raw brutality of Jim Crow. And this event contributed to the success of the movement and pushed forward the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Without that, we wouldn't have voting rights, without those people in Bloody Sunday, right? And this idea of martyrs carrying on our means of resistance is also something present in Palestinian resistance. It's also something present in Southern Sudanese resistance. In our our chant when we do our little thing for our flag, we put our right hand to our chest and we say, "O motherland, we rise, raising flag to the guiding star, uphold it in freedom, in peace and harmony." What was it? Oh, great patriots, let us stand up in silence and respect, saluting our martyrs whose blood cemented our national foundation. That's an ode to the many Sudanese people that fought, right, in the countless atrocities that have happened in Sudan, now deemed as genocides across Darfur and across South Sudan. That's an ode, right? Right. And after Bloody Sunday, only 8 days later, in a joint in Congress, right, President Johnson condemned the violence in Selma and declared his resolute support for voting rights legislation because it became so popular. So when discussing nonviolence as a factor, it's important to note that nonviolence in the civil rights movement was not simply passive nonviolence, right? The civil rights movement took aggressive tactics to achieve their goals, right? Some scholars even argue that while nonviolence was undoubtedly an important part of the movement, equally important was the threat of political violence, right? The fact is, you don't have to be liked as a leftist. Let's look at the public attitudes towards MLK. Let's look at the public attitudes towards MLK. We ought to look at the public attitudes towards MLK, right? About 8 in 10 American adults say civil rights Martin Luther King Jr. had positive impact on the United States, right? However, in May 1963, only about 4 in 10 Americans had a favorable opinion on King, right? That included just 16% who viewed him as highly favorable. Only 16% saw him as highly favorable.
I have a dream.
Only 16%, right? Shout out to Ahmed Maher, by the way. Shout out to Ahmed Maher. Oh, by the way, Ahmed Maher is also somebody starting their own YouTube channel and starting their own means of resistance online, using their resources. So please tune into Ahmed Maher. And I'm gonna get my charger real quick because my laptop is literally about to die, and I still have 50 more minutes of context to go through. Give me a second. Okay, I'm back. How am I gonna hook this? Yo, are we back? Are we back? Tell me why there's still 130 people watching. Okay, yo, I'm so sorry that my laptop died. I am so sorry that my laptop died, just as everyone was getting active. But Philos Noir said here, "I must confess that the dream that I had the day has at many points turned into a nightmare. I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go." And that's important to note when we talk about movements like the civil rights movement and how popular they were in a public context, right? In a public zeitgeist. Hey, hello. People are coming back. People are coming back. I won't keep y'all for too much longer because we already had this going on for a while, and we're already at 1 hour. But I think I gave y'all the proper means of dissection or flesh for this. So essentially, leftist identity and leftist thought contextually comes with the times of the public, right? Palestine being a central issue for students and parents alike among protests is earning people like Mamdani the applause of new waves of leftists, right? This is because our means of radicalization is coming with the live streamed killing of Palestinians, right? So the identity of leftism has never been created by leftists. It's created by a society that determines what means of acceptable performances are allowed in an optic of leftism, right? Breadtube is supposed to be the optimal leftist train of thought, but I'd more so argue Breadtube isn't even like a real space. There's no means of real connection happening like the Boston Tea Party on secret discords. Like, we're not touring across America and trying to dispel certain means of settler colonialism in Georgia, in New York, and you know what I mean? People on the platform are interlinked because we oppose ideals of hegemony, sure. However, our audience and the algorithm pushes us towards each other because of our presentation styles, messages, or collaborators that wire us in, right? It's also why commentary creators can bounce in and out of full-on fundraisers for like Palestine, right? Shout out people like Nikki. Nikki. Who would think Nikki would do way more than breadtubers? Nikki Carry On. Right? Nikki literally in a close friend story just asked people who wants to join this fundraising event, and ended up creating like the breadtube Coachella, even though she's not really a part of breadtube, right? So to get why we think breadtube is dying right now, we have to think about audience relation and platform feasibility, right? We've gone through a whole 2 years and seen little to no content creators platform/center Palestinians, which is concerning, right? Liberation has become sensationalized, and essentially you have to understand we just lived through the biggest Gen Z-led act of defiance with encampments, radicalized through the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, Sudanese, and Congolese deaths, right? Then made to believe that there's a tangible reality towards blaming leftists mad at systemic ills as anti-cautionary, right? Let's read activist stances. This one is from the encampments. When students set up, wait, let me throw this on because you know I love citing my sources. It's nice to see everybody flood back in the chat, though. It's nice to see everybody flood back in the chat. And I'm very sorry for my means of not having a charger in my damn laptop. But let's read one of these statements. As the impact of the Israel-Gaza war continues to be felt with increasing intensity, demonstrations in support of Palestine have recently reemerged on some Canadian campuses, notably at Concordia University. Amidst renewed campus protests, it is an auspicious moment to take stock of last spring's demonstrations when students across the country set up pro-Palestinian encampments on campuses from Nanaimo to Halifax. That's the left to right side of North America. That's the left to right side of Turtle Island, right? When students set up a Palestinian encampment on McGill University grounds on April 27th, 2024, they sparked a fire that spread rapidly to other campuses. University administrations were suddenly confronted with a new kind of protest and movement, right? And this happened in UBC, this happened in Edmonton, this happened like across Canada, right? So essentially when we're talking about leftist movements and the popularity of leftist movements, we have to understand that these sparks of leftism or these waves of radicalization are very much contextually in line with how even leftists in and of themselves become put at the forefront of these movements. Khalil, who is a big organizer of these encampments, is now being parroted by people like Hassan because he set this new means of hope for people across the board, specifically young people. And Hassan, having this very young audience, is pushing that out there, and all of a sudden being met with the means of appeasability with people. Because guess what? Palestine is a very popular issue that we're keeping in contact with. Did you see how much people across encampments were there? You know what I mean? Did you see how much people were there? Like, did you see the energy of there? If you even went there, the energy of there was unbridled. Yeah, and it was very useful in terms of disseminating Zionist lies. So when we're going back and talking about breadtube, a lot of people would have you think statements or movements like the encampments are inherently alienating. But why would you want to be in community with an organization that funds the death of millions, right? I just want y'all to understand that we lived in a connected history, right? Ahmed in the chat, Ahmed Sarsour, who was on our channel, Black liberation and intersectionality were all made because of a material reality. We're set in a material reality of blackness and connotation. I recognize, like, as a black person, I am set in a material reality of intersectionality and connotation that more closely resembles that of a Palestinian, right? In terms of oppression, me as a Southern Sudanese person, being born in a refugee camp, coming from a genocide, right? So the means of contextual, or the means of, I guess, the ideations of intersectionality become very jarring when we look at CrackerPoints' statement. And I saved CrackerPoints' statement to the very end because you know what? CrackerPoints' statement was so awful, and I know a lot of y'all know how awful it was, but y'all needed the context more than y'all needed that statement, right? Let me bring up this statement, though. Here. So ContraPoints stated, so many leftists felt betrayed because I haven't made a video about Palestine. Do they actually want a ContraPoints video about Palestine? Will they be happy if I get in the bath and pour milk on a mannequin of Benjamin Netanyahu? No. I post about Gaza occasionally, and I've quietly given money to Palestinian aid organizations. But I think what leftists really want from me is for me to join their chorus of anger. They sense some hesitance on my part and are judging me very harshly on my presumed opinions. I'd rather be judged on my actual opinions, so here they are. Is Israel committing a genocide in Gaza? Yes. Do I oppose it? Yes. Do I feel angry about it? Yes. I also feel a lot of other things. You see what I mean? I also feel a lot of other things. You could have stopped there. You could have stopped there. Do I feel angry about it? Do I oppose about it? Yes. But here she keeps going. 1. Factors in doom. The week after October 7th, it was clear that the mood among Israeli leaders and civilians were overwhelmingly kill or be killed, existential panic, and unstoppable lust for revenge. It reminded me of the US after 9/11, right? This same means of catering to a public that is geared towards, factoring in that essence of revenge. That's a white nationalistic thought process. That's a white nationalistic thought process. That's a cracker point right there. That's a cracker.
I have a dream.
That's a cracker point. That's number 1 on CrackerPoints, right? Y'all can understand why I say CrackerPoints now, right? Firstly, the means of wanting to form a coalition, or the means of wanting to, factor in people from these from the means of hegemony that want to enact this kind of barbaric extraction colonial process on Palestinians. Let's compare that to the Black civil rights leaders that we just talked about, the Black civil rights group that we just saw, the Black civil rights group that we just actively learned about, right? What if MLK had a position like this? What if MLK had a position like this and was like, oh, Bloody Sunday, oh, Emmett Till, that's too much, that's alienating too much people. We can't use that to our favor. Are you fucking you're a
I have a dream.
You're a cracker. That's what you are. I'm so sorry. Imagine if civil rights leaders of the past came up here and had these same ideals of Black identity. Imagine if they had these same ideals of indigenous identity. This is not how you build coalition. So when I say leftist thought leaders, I know it's a far shot to compare ContraPoints to MLK. But in essence, to platforming the optics of leftism, ContraPoints seems to be like a very big bastion of thought, of community in the space, right? And she carries that totem proudly. Right? So we have to hold her to those same ideals, like as people who, ideals of leftism, or people who want to push leftist notions. This is a cracker point right here.
I have a dream.
This is cracker points.
I have a dream.
Okay, let's keep going. There was no reasoning or protesting them out of it, nor was it politically feasible for the US to withdraw aid to Israel on a time frame that would make a difference. You know what else wasn't politically feasible for the white majority? Seeing Black people freed out of slavery.
I have a dream.
You know what else wasn't politically feasible? It doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck what you think is politically feasible. Black people deserve to be free. Palestinians deserve their liberation. These are just certain facts that we have to stand on 10 toes as leftists, right? We gotta be 10 toes on this. We all gotta be 10 toes on this, right? Everybody, we all gotta be 10 toes on this. If you ain't 10 toes on that, we can't be friends. This is a type of argumentation where I'm like, okay, the crackers are going wild.
I have a dream.
The crackers have lost their goddamn mind with their $1 million Patreon checks. Oh my God.
I have a dream.
But let's continue to go down this. Nor was it politically feasible for the US to withdraw aid to Israel on a time frame that would make a difference. It would have required replacing most of Congress and overturning decades of bipartisan strategy and diplomacy. Even in the best case scenario, it would have taken years. So there was a sense of futility, but worth. You know what happened then? Which spanned a sense of hope? The encampments. Muhammad Khalil happened. That guy happened. And you didn't. You stayed wherever you stayed and decided complete silence was better than enacting a spark of hope. Muhammad Khalil decided to step outside and enact that spark of hope. People like Noah Samson decided to step outside and enact that spark of hope. People decide to enact that spark of hope. Even on this channel, a bunch of people have been telling me like, damn, you're really good with these situations. I I'm not really that good with the Palestine situation. All I did was put different Palestinians on my live and have them relay their experience as I talked about my experience as a Sudanese refugee, and we compared and we contrasted, and then they hit their goals. You know what I'm saying? No one is telling you to save the world.
I have a dream.
People are just telling you that we have to fight these optics of leftism, especially us as leftists in this public sense, right? And excuse, y'all are allowed to be angry. Y'all are allowed to be angry, okay? Y'all are allowed to be angry at statements like this, because statements like this just don't make sense. But let's keep going. Act 2, misery. The leftist pro-Palestine movement quickly decided their primary goal was not merely opposition to genocide, but opposition to Zionism in general. That is, opposition to the existence of Israel as a Jewish state. Fuck Israel. Fuck Israel.
I have a dream. I have a dream.
What? Fuck that genocidal ass state.
I have a dream.
The fuck? Of course we decided that. Of course we decided that. And we just decided that for very tangible reasons, right? Because the resource extraction of Israel was leading to the hundreds and thousands of deaths of Palestinians, and it was being live streamed, and Palestinians were posting it. And then our friends were also helping posting it online and relaying that information to us. And we were having conversations around how are we going to get these Palestinians to certain goals? How are we going to organize for certain groups? How are we going to do X, X, and X, right? Like, of course. Oh, fuck Israel.
I have a dream.
What? Anyways, it shrunk the coalition. Zionist is a very broad category. Most Jews are Zionists. Anyone who supports a two-state state solution is a Zionist. Okay, most white people supported slavery.
I have a dream.
Most white people supported slavery. Was that ethical? Did that mean we couldn't make strides? Does that mean MLK couldn't do his protest? Does that mean the Montgomery the bus situation shouldn't have happened? Does that mean the protest in Albany shouldn't have happened? Does that mean the strawberry farm in Ontario shouldn't happen? Does that mean the Underground Railroad shouldn't happen? Does that mean this is a cracker point? This is a cracker. This is a
I have a dream.
So when we're dealing with people like this, and people that teeter to the normality or teeter to the optic of a normalcy, right? That we have to keep pushing our audience to these optics of normalcy. Push them to the optic of normalcy. Push them to the optic. Fuck your optic.
I have a dream.
If your optic is Israel, fuck your optic.
I have a dream.
What the hell? If your optic involves marginalizing black people even further down the line, fuck your... Yo, can y'all see me? I don't know if we're on or not. Are we on still? Can y'all see me? Are we on? Okay. Yeah, that was technical difficulties. I'm so sorry. But essentially, okay, thank God y'all didn't catch the rest of me because I was finna crash out for liberation. But essentially, when we're talking about the aspect of leftism and an optic of leftism being pushed in the modern day, right? And we're talking about what we have to do as leftists, when we're talking about what we build for, when we're talking about the community that we have, don't be afraid to hold people. Don't be afraid to hold people in standards to aspects of complacency. You know what I mean? Question them if they support Israel. Question them if they do things like that. Question why they're not doing certain things around liberatory causes, especially if you give them money on Patreon, especially if you're a part of their community, especially if you're part of all these things, right? And I promised that at the end of the stream that I would dance to the LeBron James song, but Isaiah... Wait, give me 2 seconds. You want to come say hi to the stream? Come say hi. Come say hi. This is Isaiah. I'm in Isaiah's house, actually. I'm not even at my house. I'm in Isaiah's house. But this is... Say hi.
Hello. What's good?
You gotta say hi. Say hi, chat. This is Isaiah's birthday. It's Isaiah's birthday, so... No. It's Isaiah's birthday. It's Isaiah's birthday, so we're gonna sing happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Izzy. Happy birthday. But anyways, there's tangible... What I want to lead into is there's tangible means of organizing and everything. Like Isaiah and I are doing these certain organizational medals here. Like I think Blue Feather is about to change and everything. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to talk too much about that. But there's means to get connected. There's means to go into community. Do you see all those happy birthdays? Yeah, they flooded the chat. Oh my God. But anyways, go outside, go have fun with your life. BreadTube isn't dead. Community isn't dead. Solidarity isn't dead. The aspect of liberation there isn't dead. We still all here, we still vibing, we having fun outside. So please go have fun outside. Okay? Okay, bye. Bye. It's been fun. Why do you not talk?
Yes, thank you so much.